Have you ever wondered why darkness always tries to silence prayer? Why the enemy pushes distraction into your life the moment you try to connect with God? Deep down, you know that the fiercest battles are not the ones fought with fists or weapons, but the ones that rage in your mind and spirit. Fear, doubt, shame, temptation. These are the chains that keep you from living in freedom. And yet, there is a weapon placed in your hands that carries more power than any earthly tool, a weapon that makes the devil tremble every time it is used. It is not complicated, it is not out of reach, and it does not belong only to the holy or the learned. It belongs to anyone who dares to pick it up. It is the Rosary, and it carries within it a strength that evil cannot endure. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, you need to understand that the Rosary is not just beads strung together. It is not empty ritual or meaningless repetition. Each bead is a torch in the darkness, each prayer a strike against despair. When your lips whisper its words and your hands move along its rhythm, you are calling on heaven itself to stand with you. Evil wants you isolated, cut off, and convinced that you are powerless. The Rosary shatters that lie by surrounding you with divine presence. It is a chain of light that binds the enemy, a fortress that shields the weary, and a ladder that lifts the soul out of despair. That is why it is feared, because it reminds hell of heaven's unstoppable power. Think of how often you feel overwhelmed by noise. The noise of the world, the noise in your own mind, the constant flood of negativity that seeks to drown your spirit. The Rosary brings silence, and silence is something the devil cannot endure. He thrives in chaos, in confusion, in endless distraction. But as you pray, every repetition strips away the noise, quiets the storm, and anchors your heart. In that stillness, you find peace. In that peace, you find clarity. And in clarity, you rediscover who you are and who you belong to. Evil loses its grip because the Rosary draws you back into alignment with truth, humility, and love. You may think your problems are too heavy, your weaknesses too many, or your past too broken. That is exactly what the enemy wants you to believe. But the Rosary was given for the broken, for the weary, for those who feel unworthy. Every prayer is an act of courage, every decade a step closer to freedom. When you hold the Rosary, you are never praying alone. Heaven prays with you, saints stand beside you, and Mary herself intercedes for you. That is the power the devil fears most. That one humble soul holding one simple chain can unleash a flood of grace strong enough to crush his lies. Stay with me, because what you will discover can change the way you fight your battles forever. The Rosary carries a power that extends beyond words because it reshapes the very way your mind and heart respond to life. When fear rises within you, when anxiety clouds your judgment, when despair whispers that nothing will ever change, the Rosary answers with unshakable truth. Every bead, every prayer, every meditation pulls your attention away from the storms of life and fixes it on eternal promises. This shift in focus is not just spiritual, it is psychological. Repetition has the ability to rewire thought patterns, to dismantle cycles of fear, and to build new pathways of strength and peace. That is why those who embrace the Rosary find a calm that cannot be stolen, a courage that cannot be shaken, and a hope that cannot be extinguished. Evil knows this, and that is why it fears the Rosary more than anything. When you pray, you train your heart to look beyond obstacles and to see victory. Fear thrives in the unknown, but the Rosary points you towards certainty. Each mystery is a reminder of truth. Truth that God is with you. Truth that suffering is never wasted. Truth that love conquers all. Evil cannot stand against truth because truth breaks ends. This is why the devil fills minds with distractions, tempting you to believe prayer is useless or too repetitive. But what he fears most is your persistence. He knows that consistency in prayer builds walls he cannot penetrate. He knows that every repetition strengthens your resolve, fortifies your faith, and closes the doors he seeks to enter. As the rhythm of the Rosary flows, you may not always feel dramatic change, but something powerful is happening within you. Your heart is learning patience, your spirit is learning endurance, and your mind is learning peace. These qualities are the very ones that strip evil of its power. Impatience, weakness, and chaos are his weapons. But patience, strength, and peace dismantle them. Imagine holding the rosary not as a ritual, but as a declaration that your soul is no longer for sale, that your heart belongs to God alone. Every bead you pass through your fingers is a proclamation of freedom, a reminder to hell that it cannot win where faith stands firm. The enemy fears the rosary because it gives you authority in silence. You do not shout, you do not fight with anger, you do not need to prove yourself. You simply pray, and in that prayer the heavens move. Evil despises this because he cannot compete with humility. The rosary is the great equalizer. It belongs to the rich and the poor, the strong and the weak, the young and the old. Anyone can wield it, and everyone who does steps into a power that is unshakable. When you take it in your hands, you are not just praying, you are arming yourself with a shield of light that no darkness can penetrate. And that is why the rosary is the most feared weapon of all. The rosary pierces the heart of pride, and pride is the devil's strongest weapon. Pride blinds, deceives, and isolates. It whispers that you are in control, that you need no help, that surrender is weakness. But every prayer of the rosary dismantles that illusion. Each repetition is an act of humility, a confess. Sigh on that you cannot win alone, a declaration that you need divine strength. The enemy hates this because he was undone by pride. He cannot stand the sight of humility because humility draws grace, and grace is the fire that burns him. When you bow your head and whisper the words, you are not becoming weak, you are aligning yourself with the greatest strength that exists. The rosary humbles the heart, and a humbled heart becomes unbreakable because it is no longer sustained by ego, but upheld by God. Through every mystery, the rosary trains your spirit to walk the same path Christ walked. You meditate on his birth, his sacrifice, his suffering, his glory. You are reminded that true power is not found in pride or force, but in surrender and love. The devil despises this because he thrives on lies that glorify self and ignore sacrifice. The rosary destroys those lies by keeping your eyes fixed on truth. It reminds you that victory comes not by exalting yourself, but by lowering yourself, not by demanding control, but by trusting the one who already holds it all. Each prayer chips away at pride until your heart becomes a vessel ready to be filled with grace. And once grace fills you, no darkness can remain. The enemy cannot thrive where humility lives. He cannot corrupt what is already surrendered. That is why he fears the rosary, because every word spoken in faith empties pride and fills the soul with light. The rosary disarms the enemy without rage, without shouting, without force. It is silent but mighty, gentle but unstoppable. With patience, endurance, and surrender, it breaks chains that arrogance could never break. Evil wants you to fight on his terms with pride, anger, and self-reliance. The rosary denies him that advantage by teaching you to fight with humility, peace, and trust. These are weapons he cannot wield and cannot overcome. Imagine what happens to your soul when pride is stripped away and humility takes root. You no longer live chained to the OPI, nions of others. You no longer crumble under failure. You no longer strive to control every outcome. Instead, you become anchored, secure, and unshakable. The rosary produces that transformation. It turns fragile hearts into hearts of steel, not because of human strength, but because of divine grace. That is what terrifies the devil. That one person holding one humble chain of beads could become a fortress of light simply by surrendering. The rosary is not a symbol of weakness, but the greatest sign of strength, because it conquers pride, and when pride falls, evil loses its strongest weapon. The rosary carries within it a rhythm that touches both body and soul. As your lips move, as your hands glide bead by bead, as your heart contemplates the mysteries, something deeper than thought begins to happen. The human mind craves pattern and order, and the rosary provides both. Its steady flow calms the storm of thoughts, lowers the weight of anxiety, and restores balance where chaos once reigned. This is not accidental. It is the design of a prayer that unites mind, body, and spirit in perfect harmony. Evil despises this because he thrives in division. He seeks to scatter your focus, to fragment your attention, to tear your heart in opposite directions. The rosary binds it all back together. It gathers your distractions and reshapes them into devotion. It takes the fragments of your life and molds them into one strong act of faith. Every repetition strengthens focus. Every rhythm restores inner balance, and every meditation lifts your mind above the noise of the world. In that stillness, you find a clarity the enemy cannot touch. He fears this because a clear mind sees through his lies, a calm heart rejects his fear, and a united spirit cannot be swayed. The Rosary does not just guard against external attacks. It heals the divisions within you. It silences the battle inside so you can stand strong against the battle outside. Evil wants nothing more than to see you two. RN between doubt and faith, fear and courage, despair and hope. But the Rosary pulls you back to unity, and unity is strength he cannot overcome. The Rosary is more than words spoken into the air. It is transformation woven into rhythm. With every bead, you are training endurance. With every prayer, you are building resilience. With every meditation, you are forging discipline. These are qualities that make your soul unshakable, and they terrify the enemy because they make his attacks powerless. A resilient heart does not crumble at temptation. A disciplined mind does not yield to lies. An enduring spirit does not surrender in struggle. This is what the Rosary creates in you, silently and steadily, day by day, prayer by prayer. Think of what happens when individuals are healed within themselves. Families are healed, communities are strengthened, nations are transformed. The Rosary is not only personal, it is collective power. Evil thrives in brokenness, in division, in hatred, but the Rosary builds unity, and unity is a chain he cannot break. That is why the Rosary has been called a weapon that binds Satan. It forges strength where there was weakness, light where there was darkness, and order where there was chaos. When you hold it, you are not just praying for yourself, you are sending ripples of strength across your family, your world, and even into eternity. The devil fears this most of all because he knows that united hearts, anchored in prayer, become untouchable fortresses of light. The Rosary is feared most of all because it belongs to everyone. It is not reserved for the strong, the educated, or the powerful. It does not require wealth, status, or influence. It does not demand eloquence or perfection. A child can hold it. The elderly can cling to it. The sick can whisper its prayers from a place of weakness. And in every case, heaven responds with the same power, the same protection, the same flood of grace. The devil cannot compete with a weapon that is so accessible, so universal, and so unstoppable. He cannot corrupt what is built on humility, nor can he silence what is born of faith. The Rosary is the weapon that strips him of his illusion of control because it proves that even the smallest, weakest voice can call down the strength of heaven. Every time you pray it, you are reminded that you are never helpless. Even when life feels overwhelming, even when the weight of your struggles presses heavily on your soul, the Rosary places a sword of light in your hands. Evil wants you to believe you have no defense, no shield, no way to fight back. But the Rosary tears that lie apart, bead by bead, prayer by prayer. It is the proof that you have authority through faith, that your voice carries weight in the spiritual realm, and that darkness cannot withstand persistent light. This terrifies the enemy because he knows that once you realize the power you hold in your hands, his grip on you begins to crumble. For centuries, this prayer has turned back storms, protected the vulnerable, and brought courage to the hopeless. Its strength does not come from magic or superstition, but from surrender. The Rosary is not about chanting empty words. It is about aligning your entire being with heaven's will. When you pray it with sincerity, you are no longer standing in your own strength. You are standing in the strength of God, sheltered beneath his protection and wrapped in the intercession of Mary. This is why the devil fears it, because it transforms fragile hearts into fortified warriors, not through pride, but through humility, not through arrogance, but through surrender. When you take the Rosary into your hands, you are choosing light over darkness, truth over lies, and courage over fear. You are declaring to the enemy that his time is short and his power is broken. The more you pray, the stronger you become. The more consistent you are, the weaker his influence grows. The Rosary is not simply prayer, it is tran. It does not just ask for grace, it produces grace within you. That is why evil trembles before it. Because once you embrace its power, you will rise as a warrior clothed in light, untouchable by despair, unshaken by fear, and unstoppable in faith. The Rosary is the weapon the devil dreads most because it reminds him of his defeat and your victory. The Rosary is more than a prayer. It is a declaration of war against despair, temptation, and every lie that seeks to chain your soul. Each time you lift it, you remind the enemy that his power is limited, his time is short, and his defeat is certain. Darkness thrives when you feel powerless, but the Rosary restores your awareness of the authority given to you. It whispers to your heart that you are not abandoned, not forgotten, not defenseless. Every prayer you speak builds a shield around you. Every mystery you meditate on strengthens your spirit. And every bead you pass through your fingers becomes another strike against the forces that want to break you. The Rosary is feared because it exposes the greatest truth: evil cannot endure in the presence of unshakable faith. You may feel at times that your life is fragile, that your struggles are too many, that your mistakes are too heavy to overcome. But the Rosary was given for hearts just like yours. It was not made for the perfect, but for the imperfect who long for grace. Every time you pray, you are lifting your weakness into the hands of God and allowing Him to turn it into strength. This surrenders what the enemy despises most. He wants you clinging to your guilt, drowning in your failures, and chained by your past. But the Rosary lifts you beyond all of that, reminding you that mercy is greater than sin, that hope is stronger than despair, and that love will always conquer fear. Evil trembles when you discover this truth because it leaves him powerless over you. When you choose to pray with consistency, you begin to notice a shift within yours. Worry loses its grip, fear loses its voice, and temptation loses its appeal. This change does not happen by accident. It is the fruit of persistence. The Rosary is not just a single prayer. It is a habit that reshapes your mind, disciplines your heart, and strengthens your will. And the more it becomes a part of your life, the less room there is for darkness to enter. The enemy knows this, which is why he fights to keep you distracted, too busy or too tired to pray. But every time you overcome those obstacles and reach for the Rosary, you take back ground that he thought he owned. The Rosary is the reminder that no matter where you are, no matter what you face, you are never without a weapon. You are never too far gone, never too broken, never too weak to rise again. Heaven has placed power within your hands, and all it asks is that you use it. The devil fears the Rosary because it transforms ordinary souls into extraordinary warriors. With humility as your strength, consistency as your shield, and faith as your weapon, you stand unshakable. The Rosary is not just prayer, it is victory. And when you embrace it, you become the victory the enemy can never overcome.